Really, y'all don't know this, y'all in danger. I'm a threat. I'm a gamble with your life, cause you know that it's a bet. You know I ain't letting up, my foot is on your neck. Take my word for it, it's a promise and a threat. Really, y'all don't know this, y'all in danger. I'm a threat. I'm a gamble with your life, cause you know that it's a bet. You know I ain't letting up, my foot is on your neck. Take my word for it, it's a promise and a threat. I ain't never really wanna flex my gifts, but I think it's my time. Let me check my wrist. You can never dim my shine, I'ma keep on grinding till I reach the top. When it's just in my jeans and I ain't looking back, cause I'm feeling like Chris, bro. They can never slow me down, but they need to hate me, now I'm feeling like Chris. Rock with the team, cause you know that we winning, we with it, we going, we flowing again. I might just go by a Benz, I might just blow my advance, whoa. I did it all for the feeling, alive but I'm making a killing. I'm gonna break every ceiling, cause I need $1 million, but I don't need your money, you can pay me in respect. Cause once I do it big, what's to follow is a check. I need 100 bags, nothing more, nothing less. And the ops feel away, cause I'm next, I'm a threat. Oh yeah. Really, y'all don't know this, y'all in danger, I'm a threat. I'm a gamble with your life, cause you know that it's a bet. You know I ain't letting up, my foot is on your neck. Take my word for it, it's a promise and a threat. Really, y'all don't know this, y'all in danger, I'm a threat. It's a gamble with your life, cause you know that it's a bet. You know I ain't letting up, my foot is on your neck. Take my word for it, it's a promise and a threat. I ain't been feeling spectacular, flow so sick it's hazardous. Y'all still suck like Dracula. Zip this beat, let's back it up. And I don't care about critics cause they talk too much, and I know that I gotta keep on grinding, finding myself. I ain't gonna stop until I know I had enough. Mama, I made it, I know that they see me. I'm popping these bottles just like I'm a genie. I'm glad that you made me, it's all in my DNA. I'm about my cheeks like I'm working for Frito-Lay, and bet it bag on myself. I don't do this for my health. Every thread is a champion. Got the title, need a belt. I don't need your money, you can pay me in respect. Once I do it big, what's to follow is a check. I need 100 bags, nothing more, nothing less. And the ops feel away, cause I'm next, I'm a threat. Oh yeah. Really, y'all don't know this, y'all in danger, I'm a threat. It's a gamble with your life, cause you know that it's a bet. You know I ain't letting up, my foot is on your neck. Take my word for it, it's a promise and a threat. Really, y'all don't know this, y'all in danger, I'm a threat. Gamble with your life, cause you know that it's a bet.
Welcome into hardcore Penn State football. Penn State shuts out Michigan State 42-0. The offensive coordinator rumors are starting to spice up a little bit. Where is Penn State going to go for a bowl game? And the transfer portal is open. So a lot to discuss tonight. We'll be live in just 1 second. Thanks for being here, everybody. I'm eating something, by the way, for people on YouTube.
We do. I like your shirt. Is that new?
Sweatshirt?
Yeah.
No, I just don't wear it that often.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it's the first time I saw you wearing it.
Mm-hmm.
I like it. Stylish.
That's what I'm known for, is my style.
Indeed.
You ready to do this thing?
Let's do it.
Since we're already 3 minutes late. Welcome into hardcore Penn State football. I'm Cory Lestochi. With me, as always, the great Sean Kane. How are you doing today, Sean?
Good, Cory. It's been a while. Some things have happened. Had a good
What's
Thanksgiving. My Friday double feature of the Miami Dolphins and Penn State. It was a successful double feature. Yeah, I had a good weekend. I know you were hunting all weekend. How did that go?
Good. I got a deer, so that's good.
Nice. Are you gonna pose and put it on the gram, holding the antlers, or?
Well, it was a girl, so there wasn't any antlers.
Oh, okay. You got a doe.
Yep. Meat's already in the freezer though, so that's cool.
Nice.
Glad it's all done. No, it was good. Be heading back out there on Saturday, so we'll see if we can continue the good luck there. But
you never struck me as a hunting man.
I wasn't, but
Interesting. Yeah, I've never done it.
It's nice, in my opinion, to go out in the woods, walk around, and be out there. And nothing's cooler than walking up or having deer walk up on you. I mean, I just think that's really cool. So, obviously, getting a deer is cool too. But no, I didn't grow up hunting or anything like that. So, just kind of getting into it. So, but yeah, it was solid. It was a good time, and it's just weird kind of coming. I took Monday off, so like it's already Wednesday. I was the reason why we didn't have a Monday show. So if you missed us on Tuesday and your daily commute on Tuesday, it's because of me. So you can send the hate mail my direction. Kind of a weird part of the year now, Sean, because everything's happening right now. And I think we talked about this last year probably a little bit, but so we still have conference champions. Like everyone's in a different stage of the season now. You have people that aren't going to bowl games that are completely in off-season mode already. They are already transitioning. The transfer portals already opened up. They've already fired a bunch of coaches. They don't have any practices, so players are leaving. You have the teams that are going to bowl games but aren't playing a conference championship. Penn State already is going to make a change at offensive coordinator. But they're still going to practice. So most of those guys aren't going to portal quite yet. You don't know who's staying that could potentially not play in the bowl game and have finished playing their careers at Penn State. We just don't know who those are yet. And they're going to try to go to the NFL. You have early signing period in about 2 weeks. So people are trying to get out in the trail and recruit at the same time. And then you have the teams that are playing the conference championship. And you have the teams that are eagerly waiting potentially to get into the conference or into the playoff that aren't necessarily in a conference championship either. So it's just kind of a weird part of the season. Everyone's kind of at a different stage right now, Sean.
Yeah. I mean, I think most teams are similar, but not really, because I mean, there are some teams that have fired their head coaches and they don't even have a leader of their program. Like you said, the conference championships are going to be going on all this coming weekend. There's some big names that have hit the transfer portal already. KJ Jefferson, I saw, was one. He's the quarterback from Arkansas that whipped our butts a couple of years back. And I think there are going to be some more big names to come. Portal officially opens December 4th. So, yeah. So keep an eye out. Like Cory said, none of our guys are in there yet. That will change. Might not be a whole lot. But I think when it comes to Penn State, most of the big names I think that do leave are going to be opting for the draft rather than maybe that 6th year, or in a guy like Chop Robinson or Old Fashioned's case, maybe they're opting out after their junior year. So that's going to be something worth watching with Penn State.
It's interesting because Penn State doesn't pretty much everybody except for I think Hunter Norzad and maybe Johnny Dixon. Like most of the guys can come back if they want to.
Yes.
Which just makes things kind of confusing as far as who's going, who's staying. COVID years really messed things up in that regard. Basically have no idea who's going and who's staying right now, which is just kind of hard to understand. You mentioned Jefferson, Grayson McCall from Coastal Carolina quarterback.
Yeah.
He's in the portal and he has one more year left too, which I feel like he's been playing for a very long time. So
Brett McMurphy had a funny tweet about him.
Yeah, and I saw the Duke quarterback went in. I think he's going to go to Notre Dame already. So
yeah,
it's
tampering season too.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good way to put it. It makes me feel better knowing that Penn State has their quarterback and the running back position figured out. Having to take a gamble in the portal on a quarterback can kind of dictate your entire season. If he's terrible, it's over. You might not even go to New Year's Six game, let alone a bowl game. And now with the expanded playoff next year, if your quarterback takes you from maybe being an 11-win team down to a 7-win team, that's big time. You didn't need him to be the best thing in the world, but you can't have him be awful. And so it's nice knowing Penn State has Drew Aller, and has a stable of running backs, has some playmakers on defense coming back. They still need to make some additions. Would like to probably see them go, obviously, after wide receiver. Some names we can talk about in a second there. Defensive tackle. I saw a defensive tackle from Duke just went in. It's where what's his face? Derek Tangelo came from. So there's already a couple names out there. A receiver, David Tyree, somebody that I'm kind of interested in. Chris Tyree. Thank you. Not the helmet catch guy. Speed burner from Notre Dame. Think he'd be an interesting guy. And then John Mitchell's brother from FIU, the receiver down there. He entered the portal as well. So there's some more names already to kind of pay attention to. Penn State's already offered an offensive tackle from Shorter University. He's got 3 years left there. So they need to hit offensive tackle too. I'm curious, Sean, like what your thoughts are. Like, obviously, Olu's gone.
Yeah.
Most likely lose Caden Wallace too. Drew Shelton, I think, will be okay, but I don't think he's going to be like perfect right away. So, and I don't even know who your other one is at that point, right? So you're kind of, last year going into the year, you're like, oh, well, if Landon Tangwall comes back, you can bump him to tackle if you really needed to, if you have a bunch of guards. Now you kind of feeling like, do you have to play one of those younger freshmen from a class ago that we thought all could play guard and maybe could play some tackle? Do one of those guys have to play tackle now? So that's something to maybe keep an eye on too.
Yeah, offensive line, that's the hardest thing to find in the portal. Number one, they're very expensive in the portal, especially the good ones. And number two, if you're a really good offensive lineman, usually you don't transfer. Like, think about the offensive lineman Penn State has gotten that didn't start their career with us over the years. Eric Wilson, Hunter Norzad, those guys are both from the Ivy League. Paris Palmer was a junior college transfer. Like, if you look at how you can look at different positions that even Penn State has had, the guys that we get in the portal, the offensive line, usually, that's not really our strong suit. Hunter Norzad worked out. But yeah, I mean, to be like, all right, we have to try to find our starting right or left tackle in the portal. That's a tall task, and it costs money. So you're going to have to make sure you have money allotted. I would like to see a cornerback as well. I like the corners we have, but especially if Daquan Hardy goes, I mean, those are 3 starting corners from last year. And that's going to be very tough to replace. I hear you with receivers. I mean, the good thing with receivers, they tend to be easier to find. Now, there's a big difference between Keon Coleman and Dante Cephas. But you could find them. You could find starting caliber wide receivers in the portal. They are out there. Skill position guys, they tend to be more plentiful, like guys from the MAC, guys from smaller conferences, Conference USA. They tend to be able to, some of them could translate well. Whereas with offensive line, that's a little harder. Like getting it's kind of a risk, in my opinion, and I don't know. And I think Penn State has seen the good and bad of it. Like sometimes these offensive linemen that come, and I know we just offered a guy from D2 today. A lot of times there's a reason they're there, and it's not a slam dunk. And I don't want to disparage anybody before they've even committed to us, but I would like to see more D1 guys on the offensive line.
The other part of that too is, Ohio State and Michigan went and got some big time offensive line portal guys last year that didn't necessarily pan out either. Like they thought those were like the best ones. Like Michigan got one from Arizona State. Ohio State got one from, I want to say it was San Diego State. And they weren't great. I thought, Simmons for Ohio State was actually bad. And it just goes to show it's a lot harder to pick right on offensive linemen. And also, you definitely lose a little bit of that cohesion factor when you go outside and get somebody. They have to come in, they have to gel right away. It's not an easy thing to do. Hunter Norzad, was able to eventually do that, but he's been here for more than just 1 year now. Yeah, trying to plug and play somebody for just 1 year, I think is kind of the tricky thing. If you can find somebody like that offensive lineman from Shorter down there, he has 3 years of eligibility, so that's not necessarily a have to plug and play right away. Like they're probably realizing he needs some development long term. That's not somebody they're gonna have to ask to step up. Like he'll probably slide in behind like a Chimney Ono, right? And you hope he can develop in time, but you're not expecting him to be kind of the Band-Aid fix right away. If you're expecting that, you're probably not setting up for very much success.
Yeah, and I mean, look at a team that built almost exclusively from the portal this year, Colorado. Where did they fall short? Trenches. Like it's hard to find guys in the portal in the trenches. You could find a good receiver, you could find good skill position guys, you could find good quarterbacks. I mean, Michael Penix, Bo Nix, Jaden Daniels. Those guys are probably going to be Heisman finalists. They were all transfers. So you could find good skill position guys, and you could find good linemen. It's not like they don't exist. Michigan last year, their center, Olu, he had a long last name. He won the Remington Award. So they are out there, but they're just a lot harder to find, and that's the position we're in. Now, keep in mind, too, we had probably the best recruiting class in the country on the offensive line last season. So is a Javen Williams ready to step up? Is an Alex Burkmeyer, Jim Deono, as you mentioned? Maybe. And we might need them. I mean, we're going to need them in the rotation, no question. But you really, ideally, you don't love the idea of first-time starting redshirt freshmen on the offensive at your offensive tackle spot. Yeah, we were so lucky this year with our offensive tackles.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt about it. Lee on YouTube says, "Hello guys, hope all is well. Thanks, Lee. Hope you had a good Thanksgiving. Thanks for being here." So, I guess we should talk about the game before we get any further.
Yes, there was a
away
game.
From Penn State won 42-0. Daniel, oh no, Palladino, I think that's right. On YouTube says Arnold Ebiketie was a great transfer. Very true. Penn State's done very well in the defensive line transfers. I think in general, defensive line is an easy, probably you could argue one of the easier positions to portal from, because at the end of the day, you got to just go pass rush. Like
especially end, yes.
Like Manny Diaz's scheme is a little bit trickier to pick up. Right. Tangelo, good transfer pickup. Like,
yes,
it's not a perfect easy, like just go rush the quarterback, go stop the run. But compared to like offensive line, or even compared to, I guess, Mike Yurcich's passing schemes, not a lot easier to learn compared to those. Anywho, Penn State won 42-0. They did get off to a little bit of a slow start. I mean, they moved the football, just couldn't convert when they needed to. Sean, I have not done the film room yet, so I'll probably do the film room on Twitter tomorrow. Maybe we'll do some on the next show on live, but I haven't done the film breakdown yet. So I'm trying to rely off of my non-sober memory of this game to a certain degree. I've watched highlights, but as far as the game flow itself, how do you think it all went? Like, I mean, were you happy, obviously, with the final performance, but were you okay with, I guess, that first quarter and a half?
It's kind of hard to remember the first quarter and a half, to be honest with you.
Remember I think they had 2 sacks when like Penn State was in the maroon/red zone. That kind of hurt things.
Yeah, I mean, I think the one of the issues on offense this year, outside of the receivers and quarterback, and it's a much smaller issue, was the interior of the offensive line struggles to pick up stunts. This was a problem against good teams and even some not so good teams, and you saw it rear its ugly head a little bit early in the game. But, slow starts have been the norm for Penn State this season in games that the offense has performed well in, like last Friday, and in games that they performed poorly in. So I was kind of just like, okay, slow start. but they were still moving the ball well, which was encouraging. They were breaking off long runs. Kane had a long run early. So they were still moving the ball. They were just stalling. And then they started to get going and we were fine. So yeah, in the final analysis, yeah, it was fine.
It's, it seemed to me that the offense, I mean, we talked about this, Sean, right? The vindication that Franklin would have if the offense looked good these last 2 weeks. And I would say he is somewhat vindicated. I mean, it almost seems like they slowed down to go faster in a sense. Like, stop with all like getting too extravagant. In a way, Sean, kind of what you were hoping they would do a lot sooner. Like, get back to let's just get our best players the ball in space and let them do things. And they kind of did that. More outside zone than we had seen all year. We had just saw them simplify things. And at least for Nick Singleton, the simplification allowed him to go faster. We told you guys all year that Nick Singleton wasn't slower from a physical standpoint. Hopefully you guys believe us now. He looked fast. That last touchdown run, I mean, he hit that hole faster than I think I've ever seen him hit the hole. Like he was not going to be stopped anything short of a touchdown there. But Sean, do you not that this offense doesn't have problems still, but do you feel like yeah, not just the offense was better, but Franklin was kind of vindicated by this performance? And not Michigan State isn't good either. I should just clarify that too.
There's a couple ways to look at it, right? One is, yeah, James Franklin is vindicated. He made the right move when he did. Yeah, they did, like you said, simple things. Get Nick Singleton the ball on the outside, run some outside zone, run some wide zone. For the blog, he pointed out, they did a lot of the stuff like Yursich did at Oklahoma State, like running the wide zone, which is something we saw a little bit this year, but not much. And sometimes we would do that stuff with Kaytron Allen. Like, no, Kaytron Allen is your guy that you go up the middle with. And Nick Singleton's your one that you go to the outside with. And finally we saw it. And you get Nick Singleton on the edge. There are very few people who can keep up with them, and we saw it on Saturday. And yeah, I never thought it was a speed problem with Nick. I know some people did. I didn't really subscribe to that. And the past couple weeks, really, you saw him hit the hole hard and run hard in the hole, just like we remember him being. And then you just have to think about what could have been. And you're not going to fire Mike Yursich after the Ohio State game before the Michigan game. It kind of looks like you're panicking a little bit. And if we did, would we have beat Michigan? I don't know. I don't know. But you have to think about it. And when you watch how we played, and you watch how good our defense, when you watch how we played on Friday, and you watch how good our defense has been all year, and you watch the Ohio State-Michigan game Saturday, I came to the realization we have probably the best defense in the country. We have a better defense than Michigan and Ohio State. After I watched that Michigan-Ohio State game, and it bummed me out in a way. And I know it shouldn't, but I was like, we were right there. And all we had to do was be competent on offense. And we just couldn't do it against either of those teams. And Cory, do you want to know the most depressing thing ever?
Yes, please.
We would have won the tiebreaker.
Did you? I didn't even want to go down that road.
Yeah, we would have won it.
To depress me, but
yeah,
that's not surprising. I'm not surprised by that.
Yeah, I was like, of course we would have won it. So, yeah.
You just knew right when that wasn't going to happen that they were gonna win it, right? Like you just knew that was going to be the case.
Yeah. So it bummed me out a little bit, but I was happy that I saw that it wasn't as much a player problem. It's not like Nick Singleton's completely broken. Now, he has things to work on. He was still missing holes. Not so much on Friday, but during the year, he was missing holes that were there when Mike Yurcich was the offensive coordinator, too. So I'm not saying he doesn't have anything to work on. I'm not saying Drew Aller doesn't have anything to work on, but they're not completely broken. And that's a good thing. And if we could get a better OC in here, you could see some serious stuff.
I really wish that the pass to Amari Evans would have been a touchdown. Like the fact that the turf monster got him at the 1 yard line, like that should have been a touchdown pass. And it really hurts me that it wasn't.
I'm not even sure how he fell.
I think he just was running so fast and he extended and just, breaking when you're breaking. Not that I've ever ran that fast, but I'm assuming if you're running that fast and then you kind of break your stride a little bit to stretch for the ball, now you're going so fast you can't just go right back in your normal stride, right? You're already like, since he had to kind of reach for it, now that you're kind of out of rhythm and you just kind of got tripped up. But again, I've never. It's like if you were. So this has happened to me on the treadmill before. I am on the treadmill and instead of waiting for it to come to a complete stop, I like hop off of it and it kind of like you trip up a little bit, right? And that's the closest thing I can come to.
Cory.
Yeah. I don't want to say I'm as athletic as Omari Evans, but I guess I'm kind of close, or at least I can relate to what he went through.
You think he could cover him?
Like if he was waiting in line for something, I could cover him while he went to the bathroom. I could watch his spot for him. If that's what you mean.
I see what you did there.
Yeah.
You can hold this place in line.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would have been nice to see him score too, because I think it would be good for him as well as Drew. Yeah, the offense really hummed along, and it was the first time that I thought, and I don't want this to happen. I was clear in the last episode. I'm going to be clear again. I don't want Jaywan Sider and Ty Howell to be the offensive coordinators, but it did make me think if that were the case, I wouldn't be burning down State College. You know what I mean? Because they did show that they were competent, which is good. I just don't know if good is good enough to get to where we want to go.
Now, I will say this, and I guess the point will probably not matter when it's all said and done. But if Penn State were to fire their next offensive coordinator and James Franklin would be to, still be retained, which again, I don't think that's the case. I think this is his last offensive coordinator for at least say, and if that offensive coordinator leaves for a head coaching job, then okay, one thing. But I'm curious, Sean, like if he does get another offensive coordinator after the one he's about to get, does that have to be Jaywan Sider at that point? Like, at what point does Sider say, okay, I'm ready for that next step and becoming an offensive coordinator, if ever? Like, how many more offensive coordinators can you go get without promoting either one of those guys, for that matter?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say. I will say Jaywan Sider has been here a long time, and he's an elite recruiter, and you have to believe he's gotten offers to be an offensive coordinator, heck, maybe even a head coach along the way. And he has just stayed here. I mean, he's been the running backs coach since Miles Sanders was here. So that is a long, long time for a good position coach. I don't think Jaywan is really wired that way, where he's going to be disgruntled and leave if he doesn't get a promotion. Like we've had other position coaches here that it's been rumored that that's happened. Josh Gaddis. I don't think Sider's really that way, but eventually, yeah. I mean, I think it's natural to want to climb, and if he gets the right opportunity, then I think he probably would go. But the right opportunity hasn't happened yet. Apparently, he really likes State College. So, and we're very appreciative that we have him here.
Yeah, no, for sure. Penn State held Michigan State to minus 35 yards rushing.
That's not good.
That is at least the second time that they've held a team to minus yards rushing on the year. They also, a large part of that was because that Penn State was able to get to the quarterback yet again. Exactly what the doctor ordered as far as sacks go. They got 7 sacks on Saturday, Sean, which puts their total at 48 sacks on the season. And they are now just 2 sacks away from 50 sacks, and my season preview bold prediction coming true. So close, Sean.
And the bowl counts, correct?
Oh, absolutely. The bowl counts. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And watch Penn State play like Army in the bowl game.
And
they don't
I
get
hope for your sake and for Penn State's sake that Chop Robinson plays, because that will
True.
That will
I think
greatly help.
2 sacks with Manny Diaz's defense. I think you can almost expect 2 sacks from a defensive back and or Deny Dennis Sutton.
Yeah,
maybe Adisa Isaac if he plays. Like,
is Manny Diaz here?
Right. That's true. That's a good point.
Yeah. I hope so.
That's a good point. I think we could find a way to get 2 sacks against pretty much anyone that Penn State could play. If they played Alabama, that could be an issue as far as Milroy's mobility. That's hard to say fast. Say that 10 times fast.
Milroy's mobility. Yeah, that's tough.
Milroy's mobility. Just a lot of Mills and R's and Bills.
A lot of stuff going on, yeah.
That would be tricky. But I think against everybody else, like, they should be able to get 2 sacks against a Tulane. They should be able to get 2 sacks against Missouri. I think they'd be able to do it against pretty much anybody, honestly. I think against
able to do it against Bama, though.
I think against Michigan they only had 1, right? Or they have 2. They had at least 1.
They had 2.
I think they had 2 in both Michigan and Ohio
JJ got
State.
hit like 3 or 4 times, and he only dropped back a few times.
Yeah, I think they had 2 sacks against both Michigan and Ohio State. So even against the best of the best, they still managed 2. So I'm definitely setting myself up for failure at the end of the year. But no, I mean, it was ferocious yet again. I saw that some Michigan State fan was upset that that last sack at the end there by Keon Wiley, like somebody was upset that, oh, why are they still blitzing in the fourth quarter, whatever. But I loved it, obviously. But it's just amazing to me how many different guys get involved in the sack and the TFLs for that matter. They ended up with 12 TFLs, 5 other TFLs besides the sack. So they're just in the backfield a lot, but it's not one guy. And I think that drastically affected the Big Ten, all Big Ten teams, because you can't choose them all. And I think some guys kind of got left off. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But Sean, just another impressive performance by the defense. Shut them out, obviously. Michigan State, not very good either. But they couldn't do anything offensively. They had that one drive. They had that one play. I think you mentioned on Twitter. He just got the ball out in time before Chop Robinson killed him, and he had a nice throw to that one receiver, got into Penn State territory, and that was like the most they threatened the entire game.
Yeah, and of course, Twitter had a mini meltdown in the replies over that. Like, secondary's overrated, and it's like, we're all right. And like, sometimes their players make good plays too, and that was just a really good play by Hauser. Might have been his only good play of the night because he was under so much heat, but that was just a really good play, and shout out to him on that. Yeah, this is, and I wanted to wait till the end of the season. Cory and I discussed this at the Mercury House, and we were asked to name our top 3 defenses of all time at Penn State. I think it's this one that I've seen. Like, I think this is the best defense, just the way they attack. They're so good at all 3 levels. There's NFL talent everywhere. The way they play together, there's no selfish play. There's just not a real weak spot on the defense. So especially the starters. And even a lot of the backups they get in. Denai Dennis Sutton was an honorable mention All Big Ten guy this year. So, or is he third team? I don't know, one of the two. But like even our backups are getting recognized in postseason accolades. So that just goes to show you. And there are countless guys on this defense that are going to play at the next level. So very lucky to have this defense. And I do think, especially if Manning comes back, we're going to be able to reload. They won't be quite as good next season, but they are going to still be a really good defense with the those we have coming back.
Yeah, Denai Dennis Sutton was third team. So they had a defensive lineman on first team, second team, and third team, and could make the argument that, like, just to give you an idea, Ohio State's starting defensive end, Jack Sawyer, was a third team. Denai Dennis Sutton was also a third team guy, just to give you an idea there. And Jack Sawyer, 5-star guy in his own right.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk a little bit more about those in a second. Just to wrap up the defense there. Right now, points per game, they are third at 11.4. In rushing defense, they are currently third with allowing just 69.67 yards per game. In passing defense, they are second at 153 yards allowed per game. In total defense, they are number one, just allowing 223 yards per game. And we talked about sacks. They're number one in sacks now. And then my favorite statistic, let's go to tackles for loss since we're here. They're third in tackles for loss with 101 tackles for loss already this year, which is insane. And then I wanted to show you turnovers and takeaways. They are 24th in they are sixth in takeaways with 24 takeaways. The leader has 27, so only 3 away from the leader there. Just to give you an idea, there's only 3 of the top 6 teams that are Power 5 teams there. So they're way up there in that as well. Just pretty much every stat that matters, Sean, besides maybe red zone touchdown percentage, they're absolutely crushing it in. Absolutely crushing it in. I think even fumbles recovered. I think they're number one in fumbles recovered, or they're up there. They're close to being up there. So, yeah, Sean, they're good. They're going to be missed. I said that I thought they were the best during that Mercury House thing too. I think that's definitely the case. So, yeah, they're going to be. There was fun to watch, right? Like we had that guy on Twitter today who said this season was a waste of time. Blah 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 blah. Look, it's one thing to say that they disappointed. That, from Vegas' perspective, they met the expectations. Let me record this part. So a guy on Twitter, for people that didn't see, said that this season was a waste of time. And again, I understand from a Vegas perspective that they met expectations, depending on where you looked. 9.5 wins. They're right there at 10. I understand from a fan perspective if you're disappointed that they didn't accomplish more. Totally get that. But I genuinely feel bad for the people that think this year was a waste. I will never view most seasons as a waste because I love this sport, and I love Penn State football so much. I love this podcast so much. I don't know if I'll ever view it as a waste. Getting to watch this defense specifically was not a waste. It was an absolute joy and a privilege to watch this defense. Seeing them shut out not 1, not 2, but 3 teams this year. I mean, that's insane. We might not see that ever again in our lives. They were played phenomenal pretty much all season long, even against really good offenses in Michigan and Ohio State. They played excellent against them. The takeaways were so fun to watch too. So I just overall genuinely feel bad for people that don't appreciate greatness when it's in front of them. Yes, can you be disappointed they didn't do more with that great defense? Absolutely, that's fair. But to think the whole thing is a waste, I just feel bad for you.
Yeah, I mean, the team itself, and this starts with the coaching staff, they failed this year. They failed to meet expectations. I mean, we had a great defense, and we did what we did in 2017 and 2016, except we didn't win the Big Ten, 2019, 2022. So, yeah, I mean, the defense was really fun to watch, but this was the first real championship unit on offense or defense that James Franklin's had. And we're not going to go to the playoffs. We did not beat Ohio State. We did not beat Michigan. And sure, they're both top 5 teams. Michigan might win the national championship. But we had a chance against both of them. We were losing by a score against both of them for such a long time, and the offense just couldn't do anything. So they failed this year. They did. Was it a waste? Might be a little strong. Like, look at it this way. Penn State, it's not like we're winning national championships every other year. We were at one time this century. That's the past. And this is better than we've had in a long time, where the program is. And that's a realistic perspective. I mean, they just are. Now, the season didn't go as planned. Anytime your offensive coordinator gets fired after week 10, yeah, there's some things that aren't right. And there are. And it's unfortunate that we weren't able to do more with the great defense that we had. But yeah, maybe a waste is a little strong, but to each their own.
Was gonna say something else, but I just couldn't get past Nicole Auerbach from The Athletic. Technically, before we started the show, I don't know if you saw this or not, Sean.
I did. I was going to bring it up too.
Oh, okay. Well, okay. We're just gonna go to that part of the show because you have any things you want to talk about Michigan State before we do that? I guess. Like Drew Aller looked really good.
Drew did look really good.
Looked confident. Looked like he trusts receivers a little bit more. Passing game, like I thought they tried to get him in rhythm early. Yay.
Andrew Lambert-Smith had a catch. Couple catches.
Yes. Tight ends got involved. They got the running backs involved in the passing game. Running backs were phenomenal.
Falcons finally missed a kick.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we looked really good. In short.
Yes. And part of that is Michigan State's very bad and pretty much
very bad.
Right.
I told y'all.
We'll have a film room more on Thursday. We can come back Monday and have final thoughts on Michigan State too. I just don't really want to talk anymore about Michigan State right now. To be honest with you.
You're done talking about Michigan State. They hired Jonathan Smith too from Oregon State. I think it's a decent hire.
I am shocked by that, to be honest with you. I really can't believe Jonathan Smith, who was a quarterback at Oregon State, and maybe it's just because Oregon State's kind of their future is kind of, I think right now Oregon State and Washington State are trying to figure out a deal to play some Mountain West teams. Like, that's not great. Maybe he's like, this is my best opportunity to get a better job. It's only going to go downhill. Like, no one's going to care what Oregon State does next year. They did some good things this year. I get it, but I thought maybe him being from Oregon State, like Oregon State, if you're an Oregon State fan, like I would 100% understand if you just don't watch college football anymore. Like, why would you? Like, this is your best year. I don't think Oregon and Oregon State are going to plan to play. Washington State plan to play each other, I believe. But I don't think Oregon and Oregon State even plan to play each other. So you lose your rivalry, you lose your conference, and you lose your coach. I mean, 3 kicks to the nuts, if you ask me.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the only reason Jonathan Smith left was because not Oklahoma State. Oregon State doesn't know who they're going to be playing next year. Like, they don't have a schedule. I mean, that's how dire things are up there. And Jonathan Smith was, I believe he played quarterback up there. So, I mean, he bleeds Oregon State. But when the situation is that dire and your conference completely abandons you, yeah, I mean, you're going to go and take a Michigan State job. That's a pretty good job. And you don't have to play in the Big Ten East anymore, which I think is going to
It's
benefit
a lot better
Michigan
job
State.
than it was. Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to benefit Michigan State maybe as much as anybody in the conference. It's maybe outside of Penn State.
Maryland.
Maryland too. But Michigan State, they had to play us, Michigan, and Ohio State.
Don't go back to dissing Maryland after you're forgetting all. Don't you be trying to take Maryland over Michigan State again. You learned your lesson, I thought. Okay, you better watch it, sir. I'm keeping an eye on you.
Look, Mike Locksley is not going to do anything at Maryland.
No, even outside of the Big Ten East.
No.
Okay.
This team's collapsed. They lost to Illinois. Michigan State has hope because I think Jonathan Smith's a decent coach.
You're done with Locksley.
Yeah, I knew 2 years ago. This guy can't. Well, not 2 years. Maybe last year. I was like, oh my god, they did it again. And then this coming year, I was like, they're gonna do it again. And sure enough, they did it again. So at some point, I don't know. I would be so tired of Mike Locksley as a Maryland fan. I hope he stays forever there, though.
Okay, let's get back on target here a little bit.
But Michigan State, I think it's a good hire.
Overall. Before we get back on target, can I just rant for 2 seconds? Indiana is stupid as hell for firing my boy, head coach Tom Allen at Indiana. Like, are you kidding me? Who are you gonna go get? What is wrong with you? That guy, nobody loved Indiana football more than Tom Allen. Like, that dude. So they went offensive originally and had Kevin Wilson there. They've come back and bring in a defensive guy in Tom Allen. Now do you go back and bring in an offensive guy to like spark things up a little bit? Like, I don't know what you do there, but dude, it's not a bad idea. No, I don't know what you do. Like, to me, that was a big time no. Like, Indiana down the stretch and was playing some seriously good football. And I'm not saying they're ever going to be great, right? Like, they're probably not ever going to be great. But I think, what else are you going to get? That team was absolutely destroyed by the transfer portal these last couple of years. Like, just didn't have any continuity to it. So I like Tom Allen a bunch. If there is I don't know if I like him enough where if Manny Diaz would leave, I would call him to be the defensive coordinator. I don't know if I love him that much. But, like, if there was a defensive analyst position open, like, I would be all over that in a heartbeat. Like, I would just hire Tom Allen to just hang out with me if I could. Like, I don't know what Tom Allen wants to do in his life, but, like, I would ask my, company I work for to bring him in just to fire us up every day. Like, I would run through 6 different walls made of different material for that guy. And Indiana, I get it, right? It's a business. I think they're making the wrong decision there.
Indiana football is a lot like Penn State basketball.
Yeah.
You're second place at the school, undisputedly second place. And the administration just doesn't care that much about it. Now, that might change with Penn State, with Pat Kraft. You got to give him a chance. But that's really what it is. I mean, I reference this a lot when we talk about Indiana. Tom Allen had to pay out of pocket to get an offensive coordinator. Like, that's Bush League stuff. Like, you don't do that as a Big Ten school. That's just not something that happens if you take football seriously at your school. And then, you fire Tom Allen, who, like you said, team got destroyed by the transfer portal. Why? Well, if you can't afford to keep your players with NIL, they're going to go. Like, Jack Tuttle signed up to be the 3rd string quarterback at Michigan.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where you're at here. And they've had other guys that transferred out. And I think it's a problem they were going to be facing again, and they will be facing again.
Well, they got hit hard already. So now that they fired the coach, everyone's allowed to transfer without penalty. Nobody has to sit out. So, I mean, they already have a bunch of guys that hit the portal. And so they're going to be, I mean, they're going to be in a worse position next year,
and like
even
you said,
without the Big Ten East.
Who do you hire? Like, who are you going to bring in? You might have to look to. I mean, you could look to a young
Lee
coordinator.
Corso?
Yeah. You could look to a 1AA guy, an FCS guy, maybe that's had a little bit of success. But I mean, I think you're in a really tough spot if you're Indiana football, because I don't think it matters if you're in the Big Ten East, you're in the Big Ten West, you're in the Big Ten Central or South. Like, you are still stuck because your administration doesn't care enough about your program.
Robert Parker a little bit ago said, I'm as hard as anyone on Coach James Franklin. What he's done and doing off the field cannot be measured. Robert, just friendly reminder here, I would maybe not start off your YouTube comment with I'm as hard as anyone. Just feel like that could go in a lot of different directions.
Yeah,
so.
I was ready for something there.
Yeah, man. Anyway, we'll get to more of that. I don't know if anything else in the Big Ten coaching wise has happened yet. To be honest with you, you could make the argument that like a PJ Fleck should have been fired before a Tom Allen. Like PJ Fleck has done nothing at Minnesota. But again, I don't know who else you go get. Like that would really like the thing to me is like Tom Allen, if Indiana became really good and they were good in 2020, like he was never going to leave Indiana if he made them really good. Like he was going to stay there no matter what. I honestly think PJ Fleck, if Minnesota had like 2 good years, he would 100% leave for a better job.
I saw somebody say, and I think it's true, PJ Fleck is what like casual college football fans think James Franklin is.
Yes.
Like
100%.
Used car salesman, doesn't win, overrated, kind of a try hard, except James Franklin wins 10 games a year. I mean, y'all know who have listened for the past 2 months, I could be very harsh on James Franklin, and I have been, but he is a much better coach than PJ Fleck. Like, there's just no getting around that. Now that shouldn't be the bar, but like there's a big difference between them. PJ Fleck lives off beating us in 2019. I don't think he's done anything significant since.
No.
So I'm right there with you with PJ Fleck.
Yeah, and I see here that next up with Adam Brenneman has had a comment. We can go towards that direction now and talk about the latest kind of rumors. I kind of already – we'll get to Mr. Andy Kotelnicki in a second. Is it Kotelnicki? Kotelnicki?
Kotelnicki? I don't know.
Kotelnicki. We'll learn that, probably.
Hopefully.
Before we get to that comment, though, I kind of already teased the Nicole Auerbach tweet, so I want to bring that up first. She said today that among those in a mix for the Duke position, Mike Elko left to go to Texas A&M, so the head coaching job at Duke is open. Among those in the mix, Penn State's defensive coordinator Manny Diaz, NC State's defensive coordinator Tony Gibson, and Ohio State's defensive coordinator Jim Knowles. And then she was told that all 3 met with Duke today, and search is still in early stages. So just non-bias here, I would just tell people, like, wouldn't you want the defensive coordinator who is in the same state as you and knows recruiting North Carolina and South Carolina area better? Like, wouldn't you want to go get Tony Gibson? And if not that, wouldn't you want the guy who's a little bit more experienced and has been around the block a little bit more, and Jim Knowles? Like, that's just what I would do personally. Like, I wouldn't choose Manny Diaz.
Yeah, why would you want to pick him? He's a bum. Don't do it.
Right. Anywho, I honestly, I'm curious to see if Manny Diaz, if that was kind of a feeler out interview to see if that's the right fit for him. I really don't think Manny Diaz is going to take any job, and I don't want to go too much down that rabbit hole, Sean, because I think we have a fan question about it. But I don't think Duke is the fit, personally.
Yeah.
But what do I know?
You know, we talked about this yesterday. I think it was me and our buddy Mike. We texted about the Duke job. There's a few things with that. Number one, at Duke, you're always going to be second class because Duke basketball exists. Even without Coach K, Duke basketball is the thing there. It's a small private school. They don't have really much success on the football field. Mike Elko had, and the guy before him, David Cutcliffe, had some good years, but there's a limit on how good you could be at Duke, I think. I think they're at their best, they're an 8 or 9 win team. And that's just the way it is at Duke. And I don't know if Manny Diaz wants that. A job, I don't see any jobs right now that scare the life out of me that we're going to lose Manny to. One job, it's also in the state of North Carolina, that I think it's a similar job that I think he might leave for, is North Carolina. So why North Carolina? They got a lot of money. They have the Jordan brand. Mac Brown laid a good foundation there. I think you could win at North Carolina. And I could see Manny being a good fit there. Manny Diaz has coached under Mac Brown before. Mac Brown might have some hand in who his successor would be, depending on how good of a relationship they have. So I could see him going to Carolina if Mac Brown were to retire, which I'm not sure if he's going to.
I want to save what I'm going to say about Manny Diaz for the fan question. So I'm going to stop there.
Fair enough.
Back to the original OG question there. Andy Kotelnicki is what I'm going with. Who is he? He's most likely going to be the next offensive coordinator at Penn State. He's currently the offensive coordinator at Kansas. Lots of reports coming out today that they have met with him. And Kotelnicki seems to be kind of the guy. Been the OC at Kansas. He has been with Lance Leopold, who's the head coach at Kansas, forever. Back when they were at Buffalo, and probably stealing Sean's thunder here because I know he likes to go history, but I'm sure it was going to bring up when Buffalo played Penn State. He was the offensive coordinator there. But even going all the way back to before Leopold was at the FBS level, he was also with him all the way back in, where was it, Sean?
Wisconsin Whitewater.
That's right. And they were good there too.
School, but
they were very good there.
They're a good football program.
So shout out to Buffalo for the great hire, first of all. And this guy he's well regarded around college football. Oklahoma was interested in him. Somebody else, I think, has already been interested in him. So it's a good name, but leave it to James Franklin for like maybe a little bit of an under the radar name. Sorry, I said that wrong.
Yeah. I don't know if we mentioned him on the pod yet, but he was a name that had been talked about, just like no reports. And then in the past couple days, you saw on Twitter, Kotelnicki's name popped up for Penn State, and there seems to be some legs to it. And I would be happy with this hire. They have a fun offense at Kansas. I think his personality, he is that mad scientist, and I like that in an offensive coordinator. He has an attacking offense. They are not a cautious offense at all. They're not conservative. They're going to go right at you, and I think it could be really fun to watch with the athletes we have and the athletes we're going to pick up in the portal. So I also know I saw a stat that Kansas ranks in the top 4 in least pressures allowed. So that tells me, and I'd have to go and if he is hired, I will go and watch some more Kansas football. They probably get the ball out of their hands quick, which I like. Get your athletes into space. We have athletes to put in space and make it easier on your quarterback. And I talked a little bit about how I want the new offensive coordinator to bring a little bit of a swagger to the offense. He'd do that. Just reading what his personality is like, I could see him bringing that swagger to Nick Singleton, to Drew Aller, and it could be fun to watch.
Yeah, so I'll just say this. Their yards per attempt is solid right now in the passing game. 9.4 yards per attempt. That's tied for 8th best in the country. If you're curious, Penn State is at 97th right now at 6.6 yards per attempt. So passing game, much better at Kansas. The other thing I wanted to mention, just in general, yards per play. Kansas is at 7 yards per play right now. Penn State, 5.46 yards per play. So you can't necessarily compare exactly apples to apples there. Competition is different. Where the strengths of the two offenses lie are different. But Penn State, besides Iowa, Michigan, and Ohio State, haven't played that many good defenses. Kansas also played Illinois and put up more points on Illinois, although it was at home. Two reservations I have at the moment, Sean, and full transparency, I have not dove deep into this yet. But two things I think maybe aren't even my reservations, but are things that somebody is going to ask about or is going to bring up to us. Number one, their quarterback, right? And even Franklin mentioned this. Like, you go after an offensive coordinator who maybe has only been great with like one quarterback, and it was really more quarterback than anything else. Well, Nicky's been doing it for a long time, and so that is specifically not the issue. Their quarterback at Buffalo wasn't that great. They had a good running back. What's his name? Patterson. He was really good. I think he was like broke a lot of MAC records.
Yeah, I don't remember, but yeah.
Pretty sure it's Patterson. I don't remember his last name, but first name or last name, pretty sure it's Patterson. But at Kansas, he's had Jalen Daniels, who is phenomenal, but is not necessarily comparable to what Drew Aller is. Like, he goes around, makes big time plays, can throw the ball and run quite a bit. Probably a better runner than Drew Aller, probably even a better runner than Bo Prabula, and also a better passer than Bo Prabula. So kind of just go watch some highlights of him if you haven't seen him. But he had a really good year, like a year and a half ago. But anyway, I'm curious how that translates to a Penn State offense. I guess you could just bring him with him because I think he's going to come back. But that to me that is one thing, right? Like, can he replicate those things without that great quarterback? And how does that translate to a quarterback that's not like him? And then he played in the Big 12. And I don't think the Big 12 defense joke or stereotype is nearly as bad as it used to be. Like, people throw around like, oh, the Big 12 defense like it was 4 or 5 years ago. Big 12 is playing better defense now than they were a little bit ago. I'm not saying it's Big 10 defense. I actually think SEC defenses are a little bit more liquid than people would ever like to admit now. But Big 12 is playing better defense, but still, people are going to be hesitant of that because, again, Mike Yurcich, basically what he hung his hat on was success at Oklahoma State when they weren't necessarily playing great defense. So those are the two things I think people are going to ask questions about the most. And I don't know if I have a great answer to respond to those yet.
Also, Lance Leopold is an offensive mind. So Mike Yurcich had a similar situation. He coached under Ryan Day, he coached under Mike Gundy, and he coached under Tom Herman. So those are all offensive guys. And Mike Yurcich, it was wondered about often how much he calls plays. I think those questions will be there for Nittany. Now, he may have been the play caller. I don't know that yet. I still have to find out more. But if he, it's going to be a question. Now, I could also say that just because you coach under a great offensive mind doesn't mean you can't coach. I mean, that's absurd. And Mike McDaniel, Kyle Shanahan. Kyle Shanahan called most of the plays in San Francisco. Mike McDaniel is engineering statistically an all-time great offense. So you can still do it. But there are questions about how much influence Leopold had over Nittany. So those are going to be the things that we iron out. And again, it's not a slam dunk. Nobody's reported that this is done, that this is going to happen. But there does seem to be a lot of smoke here. So, and
here's another interesting thing, Sean.
I would be happy with it. Yeah.
Here's another interesting thing. Just looking at, just want to make sure. Yeah. So, let me just double check here before I say something that is wrong. I want to make sure I'm right on this before I say it. Right now, I don't think he's the quarterback's coach for Kansas right now.
Danny O'Brien, come on down.
That's yeah. So right now, Jim Zabrowski is the assistant coach and quarterback coach at Kansas, and Andy Kotelnicki is the tight ends coach and offensive coordinator. So that's another thing. Can he develop quarterbacks? And again, like you said, can he, how much is he really calling plays? That to me is a kind of a big question mark, right? What do you do about that? Like, can he coach quarterbacks? Probably. Like, let me look up, see if he has coached quarterbacks before. But I guess that's something that you kind of maybe questioning a little bit, right? It's the last time he was the quarterbacks coach when he's at Buffalo, and how does that necessarily make you feel?
Yeah. I mean, he's never coached at a big time level coaching quarterbacks. So yeah, and part of this hire.
Hold on a second, Sean.
Yeah.
Buffalo running back Jarrett Patterson.
There you go. Yeah, I remember that name now. This hire, like, obviously it's for the big picture, but it's also for next season. You look at having Drew Aller, having Nick Singleton, having Kaytron Allen there. These are all guys that, if everything goes right, they're probably going to be starters in the NFL. So James Franklin's very perceptive, and he knows he has to get this right, not only for the long term, but also for next year. So he's going to be, I think if he's worried about Kotelnicki, maybe, I don't think he's really thinking about him, and we don't want to put the cart before the horse here. I don't think he's thinking about him leaving after next season. I don't think that's really his focus. I think he's really trying to get things right next year, because with the expanded playoff, should this be, now I don't know who's coming back next year, but with what we know, should this be a playoff contender? Absolutely. And I think that's the main goal next year, is getting the playoff. You have to play Michigan, get Ohio State at home, you get Washington at home, you get UCLA at home, and you only have to go your tough road game. You got to go out west. You got to go to LA to play USC, and you got to go to Wisconsin. But that's a decently favorable schedule, in my opinion. You don't have to play Oregon either.
Back on an article from when he was at Buffalo, says that he will be coaching the wide receivers in 2021, but he's previously coached the tight ends, running backs, and quarterbacks. So it seems like he's kind of done everything. So maybe he's a shoe-in for quarterbacks coach as well. But you're right. Like, does O'Brien, who already has a relationship with Aller, do you find a way to wiggle that in? I don't really know. Like, you can only have so many assistant coaches. So
I was going to say, how big of a staff could we have? Yeah.
You can't just add another one without getting rid of one. You can move someone to an analyst, and there's things that change when you do something like that. It'd just be interesting to see how it all works out and what they decided. Probably overthinking it. Probably just going to be the quarterback's coach. But then do you kind of question that a little bit, right? Like, or do we just not worry about it? I'd be curious. Like, does he try to reinvent himself? Does he try to tweak or derive from the offense that they've been using now that it's his own? Or is it going to be cookie cutter, same exact thing that he's been using since he was, 2011, 13 or so? I think he went to Whitewater. So he's been with him for a long time. So I'd be curious to kind of see how that ends up.
Well, I know I want him to run his offense. Like,
right.
I don't like when they try to blend things. Like, my first red flag with Kirk Ciarrocca was James Franklin saying, we're going to try to blend what he did with what we do. And I have a feeling if I had the podcast back then, I'd be like, no, don't do that. No. Let him run his thing. And you saw the 2020 offense. And I want Kotelnicki to run his offense. Now, do you have to suit it to the players you have? Absolutely. Jalen Daniels, a different quarterback than Drew Aller. Yeah. So you have to be able to fit your offense with the personnel you have. But I still want it to be your offense. And that's it. Like, I do not want to see any kind of blend. I just want him to come in, run his stuff a lot like Joe Mo did.
Yeah, 100% agree with that. And yeah, he does call the plays. Like, that does matter. But like, just because he says the calls the play, like, you call the plays or do you kind of call the plays?
Are you calling your plays or are you calling what bastardization of your playbook you're running, you know?
Exactly. So anyway, that's where things are leaning right now in that regard. We haven't heard much of this. We haven't heard this much attention towards anyone else yet. So kind of where there's smoke, there's probably fire. So honestly, this could be official before you even listen to this episode if you're listening on a podcast. So you're welcome.
Yep, keep an eye out. I was hoping it would get done tonight if it's true. You know what I mean? You have to wonder about the veracity of things sometimes, but there's a lot of smoke.
Where do we want to go from here? You want to talk? Let's just do fan questions, so we don't have to maybe hold anything back, and then we can wrap up things. Oh, before we get to fan questions, sorry, I wanted to list all of the players that made all Big Ten real quick here. So, first of all, Olu Fashanu. Can't believe I butchered that one last time. He won the Remington Pace Offensive Lineman of the Year award. That's only the second time a Penn State offensive lineman has won the award. AQ Shipley won it in 2008. So that's pretty cool to see. On offense, Penn State's first team members was just Olu. And he was, I don't know why they did it this way, but for coaches and for media. Kane Allen was second team for coaches, third team for media. Hunter Norzad was second team for both media and coaches, which kind of surprised a little bit of, to be honest with you. Not that he didn't play well, but second team, unanimous second team, I'm kind of surprised by. Let's see here. And then third team, Nick Singleton, coaches and media, third team. Tyler Warren, coaches, third team. Kaytron Allen, media, third team. Honorable mentions, Drew Aller, J.B. Nelson, Keandre Lambert-Smith, Vega Ione, Sal Wormley, Theo Johnson, and Ty Warren. So 3 of the offensive guards all made it, which is pretty cool, in my opinion. Did I forget, or did he not make it, which would be crazy to me? I didn't write it on the tweet, but I should have. Offensive tackle Caden Wallace is also an honorable mention, which I forgot. So apologies there, Caden Wallace. I was like, there's no way he didn't get honorable mention. So that was the offense. And then defensively, Chop Robinson was unanimous, and I believe he was the only unanimous first teamer. Is that correct, Sean? Here we go.
Only unanimous from Penn State, yeah.
Yeah, and then Abdul Carter was on there from the coaches, but not the media. So a first teamer. Adisa Isaac, we mentioned already, second teamer. Kalen King, second teamer. Denai Dennis Sutton, third teamer. Johnny Dixon, Daquan Hardy, both third teamers as well. Some more honorable mentions for you. Jalen Reed, Kevin Winston Jr., Probably should have seen Kevin Winston Jr. be a third teamer, in my opinion, but whatever. Kobe King and Curtis Jacobs. I think Curtis Jacobs kind of got screwed a little bit there as well. Alex Falcons is a third team kicker. Daquan Hardy was a second team punt return specialist. I forget anybody, Sean?
I think you got them all. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think with defense, the funny thing with it is they have so many guys and the stats aren't really distributed like they should be. So I feel like a guy like Curtis Jacobs would be a second team all Big Ten guy if he played for pretty much anybody else except us, maybe Michigan. So that just shows you how good we are. That there's so many honorable men, that there's so many good players throughout especially the defense. The offensive line, I was a little surprised we had so much love for the offensive line, and I think our offensive line was good this year. Not great. I don't think they were as good as last season's, but they were good. And I was like I said, I was a little surprised that they all made it, but very happy for those guys. Didn't shock me that Olu was the only guy that was first team all Big Ten. I think that was right. But yeah, I think there's a lot to like from that. And Corey's guy Talia Tagovailoa was second team all Big Ten.
Yeah, I don't really understand that, to be honest with you.
Well, who else are you gonna put there?
I'd put Drew Aller before him.
No. Really?
Like you can't just look at the numbers, right? Like if you're trying to go win a football game with a quarterback, I'm taking Drew Aller over him. Because I don't trust Tagovailoa to turn the ball over.
Yeah, but Drew Aller's just not gonna do anything.
He did some things against Michigan State.
It's Michigan State.
I'm just saying,
in
like,
big games, like Drew laid an egg. Drew laid 2 eggs. At least Talia, you might have it's kind of like the Clifford Allard debate. You know what I mean? You'd have a chance. He might lose you the game. Probably will lose you the game, but you'd have a chance.
I would take Drew Aller in the sense that I know he's going to take care of the football, and he has the ability to even be a better quarterback than Tagovailoa. Just
he has the ability, but
yeah, I'm taking him all day.
All right, I might agree with you next season.
Yeah, I know you will.
I hope.
I know you will.
You better be better than Talia Tagovailoa next season.
Right. And just the turnover thing. It's not like he just had like one turnover game. Like he melted down in games to me.
Yeah, he did. I mean, I'm not gonna say he didn't, but
I know what I was more upset about than that one though.
Games.
I was more upset about Tommy Eichenberg winning linebacker of the year, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I knew he was going to, but yeah. Lord.
I think he's very overrated.
He's awful.
Like, I think you can make an argument our 3 linebackers are better than him. And maybe that's me being a Penn State Kool-Aid drinker. But I just never really got it with him. Like, no, he's good.
The other guy and I might be wrong here. Let me just double check myself before I. Yeah, I'm right. The other linebacker, Cody Simon, who is younger, obviously, I think he's actually their best linebacker. He played really well against Penn State. He, to me, is already better than Tommy Eichenberg. So, anyway.
And they have a guy named Steel Chambers. Name alone.
Yeah.
Better than Tommy Eichenberg.
Eichenberg is going to get drafted way too high and not do anything for somebody.
Yeah, he's that guy. A lot of times going into the draft, they're like, this ain't going to work.
Right. I mean, he's slow. He can't play. Like, he's going to get killed in space, and he's not quick. I mean, he's just, and he's not even that strong. Like a freshman, Katron Allen bench pressed him to get into the end zone. Like what is a full grown NFL guy going to do to him?
Yeah.
Anyway, that was one I was actually more upset with. If you wanted to get me all fired up.
I agree. I agree with you. I never, like I said, I just never really got it with Eichenberg. I never really understood why he got the hype that he did.
Give it to, I don't even care if you don't give it to Penn State, or give it to Rodney Gallagher or one of the Michigan linebackers.
Yeah,
I don't
some of
care.
the guys at Michigan, they have several good linebackers.
It was nice to see Newton won defensive lineman of the year. I thought that was,
Yeah.
I was going to be
Yeah,
pissed if they gave it to JTT. Yeah, Newton, I thought, really deserved it. I mean, if he's not in that defense, Illinois loses a lot more games. So, big time. He honestly, like, I understand why Marvin Harrison, if Marvin Harrison isn't there, Newton probably should have won MVP for all of the Big Ten. Like, what he meant to that team, he was that important to that team. Not from the standpoint of, like, he's the best player, but as far as most valuable player, you take him off that Illinois team, I don't even know if they win half the games.
Yeah, it's kind of like last year we were talking. I remember talking about Blake Corum versus Chase Brown. I was like, I think Chase Brown's a better running back than Blake Corum. Because of that, like, Illinois had nothing on offense last year, and it's a similar story of them on defense. But yeah, I had no problem with him winning defensive line. Winning that over Chop, even though we all know how good Chop is. Like, Johnny Newton's going to be a really good pro as well.
Yeah. I honestly, like, I think Johnny Newton's a top 10 pick. To be honest with you,
I do too. Like, he's gonna be a star.
We'll have the pick'em standings done. I haven't got them finished yet. I hadn't done it yet because I don't think I won, so I don't really care. I can't announce the prizes though. We are going to have a signed Christian Hackenberg jersey for the number 1 winner. And 2 and 3 is going to be able to pick something from the Mercury store, any merch item of their choice. So, pretty solid there. We'll pass those. Sean and I cannot win. We have to recuse ourselves from the winning. So, I don't think I won anyway. I don't think I had a very good last week, but
I did not. I don't even remember doing my pick'em. I hope I did. I think I did.
Wouldn't that be something?
I think I did, because last week I was all thrown off because I only worked 3 days. So, and I only had this once.
And
so
we did the show on Monday,
was,
so I didn't want to make you pick so early.
Yeah, my schedule was all thrown off. So I think I did, but I don't specifically remember.
So it's not your fault? Is that what you're saying?
No, it is, but there are reasons.
Okay. This question's from Einstein von Braun. Mr. Longtime listener to the show, which, by the way, if you did your Spotify Wrapped or your Apple, whatever they call theirs, take a picture, send it on Twitter or Instagram. We'll retweet it or whatever. It's kind of cool to see people are actually listening to us. We know you're out there, but anyway, let us know. That'd be cool. One person did shout out to Mike Vales. We made his top 5, which was pretty sweet. But anyway, longtime listener, Mr. Smith says, now I'm going to kind of correct this because Mark Stoops didn't end up going to Texas A&M, but the point still stands. Is there any other potential open jobs that would pull Manny Diaz away? The only other job I could see him leaving for is Florida should they fire Napier. I think you hit that on the head. I think, first of all, Billy Napier, offensive guy. So if they replace him, maybe they try to go more defensive. And Florida seems like the logical fit for Manny Diaz. I think, personally, if I'm Manny Diaz, I'm waiting for a job like that. No offense to Duke, but if Manny Diaz waits another year and the defense is still good, like, he is the number 1 guy. Like, he gets, I don't want to say up to the same level, but close to the level of, like, Brent Venables, who went to Oklahoma from Clemson. Like, you can get to that level without having to be a head coach. He's already been a head coach before too, so that's only going to help him. Like, he can get those top tier or second tier, if you will, head coaching jobs. He doesn't have to go from a Duke to a Florida. He can go straight from defensive coordinator to Florida if he wants. So I agree with you. I think that has to be the number 1 choice for Manny Diaz. And do you try to plan that out and try to, like, schedule that and, see if the beans are going to kind of fall and the correct way there? I don't know. But otherwise, Sean, I mean, we talked about this a little bit before, but, like, where else could he really go that makes sense? Like, you mentioned North Carolina. I don't know where else besides that, where right now, at least, I'm like, oh yeah, he's gone. Robert Parker says on YouTube, if Stoops would have went to A&M, Manny probably goes to Kentucky. Yeah, maybe I could see that. That's a possibility. You know, there's just a lot of there's a lot of interesting ones out there. He used to coach, I believe, at LA Tech. So like if something opened up in the South, would he maybe consider going over there? If Arkansas would have fired Pittman, would he have maybe considered Arkansas? Um, Mississippi State was an interesting one for a little bit, but I didn't ever think that was going to be the case. We talked about that before when we were messing around about Mississippi. But Sean, I think it's got to be somewhere in the South Atlantic Coastal Conference to be legit. And I don't think there's that many he's going to leave for. But I do think he'll probably get a pay increase after interviewing with Duke.
Yeah. I always thought of Manny, if he were to leave, and I think eventually he will, it'll be down south, just because that's where his roots are. I think this might be the only school up north he's ever coached at. So I always thought of him getting a job like that. The Venables point is a good one. Like Oklahoma's a blue blood. Like that is a premier job, and he got from just being a coordinator. Now there could be an argument though, Corey, that being a former head coach actually works against Manny Diaz. There's a big push against hiring quote unquote retreads and guys that have failed before. Now, I don't subscribe to that personally. I don't mind if a guy's failed before. Pete Carroll failed before. Bill Belichick failed before. Like it doesn't mean you can't coach. A lot of times you learn from your failure at your first job and you get better. And he got to go and coach at a place like Penn State for 2 seasons. So I don't subscribe personally, but there is a big push against hiring quote unquote retread coaches.
Yeah, that's a good point, Sean. I don't think anyone will be that way towards Manny Diaz. I honestly think still like Miami should have never fired Manny Diaz. Like he was the perfect fit for Miami. That to me was a botched job too. That's just something you ride him out. You give him more time than you would give other people based off of his connections there, based off like he has literal family connections to that area. I think that was a missed opportunity, and they haven't really been able to right the ship since.
Yeah, I think there's something up with the job at Miami. No one could succeed there. It's
difficult.
Yeah, like I think people just kind of think you could walk in, just put the wall down around Miami, Fort Lauderdale, and everything will be fine. But how come nobody could do that? I mean, I don't think all these guys are like bombs. Like Mario Cristobal's a really good coach, and it doesn't look any different than when Manny Diaz was there, or Randy Shannon, or Mark Richt.
Part of it is, I mean, even Penn State's going down there and picking up some. Okay.
We're still live?
We're still live now. Apologies for that.
Yep.
Tech
issues. This is live TV for you.
Hopefully the thing comes back, but we're still here. Oh, we lost him again. Anyway, yeah, that's all I really had to say about that.
And we're off.
But we're good.
And we're on.
Sorry about that, everybody. Anyway, next question. This is a tricky one, Sean. This is from John Bondala. Which seniors will sit out the bowl game, and which underclassmen also will leave to take advantage of the draft and improving their family's living standard? Man, that's a deep question right off the bat.
That last part is...
Yeah. So I guess I'll start by saying, Sean, seniors is such a just terribly defined term now. Hard to know who's going to sit out and who's like a senior. We'll start with that question first. Like, who do you think is going to sit out? I think Olu sits out. I don't think there's any reason Olu needs to play. I don't think he'd benefit from it at all. I know he likes his team, and he's already done enough as far as risking a lot of money to come back. He got his degree. He played for his team. He was trying to win a national championship. I don't think he plays in a bowl game. He has if he gives up 6 sacks in a bowl game, just hurts his odds. If he doesn't give up any sacks, I don't think it increases his odds by any stretch. So I don't think he does. I think, he could, and it might, because he's a good dude, but I don't think he needs to.
Yeah, I mean, this is the type of question that I could see that I could see people getting irritated with us at. But yeah, it's hard to say. It's hard to say, right? A guy like Olu, yeah, he's a top 10 pick. A guy like Chop Robinson, he's already had what I think, Dr. Kane here, was a concussion this year. If you have 2 concussions in the same year, yeah, that's bad news for your draft stock. And you're going to lose. You're in danger of losing a lot of money, and slipping in the draft. I think if you're not a first round pick, or you don't feel like you're going to be a first round pick, even if you're borderline, it's always a good idea playing the bowl game, because you can make yourself a lot of money. You could become a first round pick or second round pick in a bowl game. So I think putting more stuff on film, for 9 guys out of 10, always a good idea. I'll mention a name that I didn't think made any sense sitting out. A guy like Jesse Luketa a couple of years ago. No idea why he sat out the bowl. Made no sense at all. But if you don't think you're going to be a mid-round pick, I think it always makes sense to put some stuff on tape and play. Guy like Olu makes a little less sense, but hey, if you want to play Olu, be my guest. It would be cool to have you. Same thing with Chop. So I hope they play, but wouldn't shock me if they did.
Hold on a second. I gotta go back. Got to correct you, just so we're on the same page. You said Jesse Luketa. I think you meant Brandon Smith. Because Luketa played in the Outback Bowl. Had a good game.
Yeah, he did. Honestly, the Arkansas game after the fake punt, I just kind of went into airplane mode. So, and I just remember Smith Philbert randomly having 3 sacks. So that's about all I remember from that game. But my point stands.
Yes,
Brandon
absolutely.
Smith,
Just didn't want to throw shade to Luketa.
Yes, thank you. Brandon Smith, made no sense for him to set out the bowl game.
Right.
Really, not at all. So for most guys, I would say you should play.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, your point 100% right. But yeah, just wanted to make sure we had the right name there. And to think who could potentially go, I don't know, man. It's so difficult to tell nowadays. I don't even know who's going to go and who's going to stay anymore. I think I can run through names and say yay, nay, probably, but I have no idea. And anyone who thinks they do, they don't. We might have some people decide by the end of the week. We might have some people that don't decide until they figure out what bowl it is. Some people might not decide until way later. So it just, you don't know. And some guys might, what we saw with Saquon, he played in the Fiesta Bowl, but they were trying to limit his reps. They didn't try to have him play too much, which is hilarious because they beat Washington. I don't want to say handily, but Saquon didn't even really play the whole game. He had that big run, and then they kind of let Miles take over a lot of it.
And that's something you could see with Chop and Olu.
Yeah, Chop Robinson. Yeah, you don't need Chop Robinson to go out there and play a bunch. And honestly, you could argue, you kind of want to see where your other offensive tackles are at in the bowl game. This is a great opportunity to see where Drew Shelton's at, to see who, I don't know if it's going to be
I was gonna say,
Jaden Williams or Burkmeyer. Or do we want to figure that out? And then defensive end especially, you got to feel really good about. Wherever he needs to go to get a new New Year's Six Bowl win. So he has a Cotton Bowl, he has a Rose Bowl, he has a Fiesta Bowl. So why not go to the Peach Bowl and want to win a different New Year's Six Bowl?
Sure. Doesn't really matter to me where we play. I guess, a New Year's Six Bowl would be nice for sure. And I think that's likely at this point. I really wouldn't want to play Tulane, personally, because it's a lot like playing Pitt. If you beat Pitt, everybody tells you you should have beat Pitt, and you get no credit for it. Everybody just goes, that's nice. Anyway, if you lose to Tulane, that's going to be a depressing show if we were to lose to Tulane. And so I don't want to play them. They're a good team. I don't mean any shade toward them, but I wouldn't want to play them. I would like to see Penn State play Missouri. I think of Missouri as similar to Penn State's level. I think I have a little more respect for them than Corey may. I think they contrast us pretty well, and I think it'd be a pretty good game. So Missouri, team like Texas would be fun, or Ole Miss. So probably one of those three teams. I'd probably lean Missouri.
Penn State beats Ole Miss or Missouri by at least 10, if not more.
I still don't trust this offense.
I don't care. It could be 10-0 for all I know. No, that's not true. Missouri's got a good running back. They don't have a good offense. They have a good running back. Schrader is a very good running back. But again, Ole Miss, same thing. Dart's a good quarterback. Good running. Ole Miss honestly probably has a little bit better offense than Missouri even does. But again, Missouri, they are being held up there for getting blown out by Georgia and for having a close loss to LSU at home. They wouldn't even be in a conversation if the guy didn't kick a 60-something yard field goal as time expired against Kansas State at home. They wouldn't even be in a conversation if that guy doesn't somehow robotically kick the ball 65 yards or whatever it was. I think it was a new NCAA record or tied it. So they wouldn't even be in that conversation. And Kansas State is still ranked, even though they're 8-4 now. So it's not even like it's a good win. And then still being held up by Tennessee being ranked 21, which again doesn't make any sense either. So Missouri, I don't think is great. Florida should have beat them, and Florida's not very good. But whatever. I would love to play them. I think Penn State wins by at least 10, maybe 14. And I understand your point about the offense, but Missouri's defense is not very good. Not very good at all. And Florida didn't even really throw the ball very much. They just ran it. I think Penn State could probably do the same. Ole Miss, I think, is actually a little bit better than Missouri if they played each other. And Ole Miss beat LSU for whatever that's worth. And Missouri didn't. But similar, good offense, bad defense. But anyway, my question to you, Sean, is: would you rather play Ole Miss in, say, the whatever they call the Outback Bowl or the Citrus Bowl now? I think it's like Reliquest Bowl or whatever. I don't know what they're calling them now. On New Year's Day, instead of a New Year's Six Bowl against, say, Tulane, like Peach Bowl versus Tulane, or one of the lower-ish bowls against Ole Miss?
I would. Now, fans might disagree with me. I don't think the New Year's Six Bowls, I mean, they mean something, but they're not what they used to be. I mean, I'd rather play a better team. I think you get a little more respect for it, but that's just me.
I'll also say this, everyone's assuming it's Tulane. Tulane plays SMU on Saturday. I'm not guaranteeing that Tulane wins that football game. Liberty could actually end up being the group of 5 team, and Liberty at this point is undefeated. So you could potentially have a UCF claim national championship for Liberty if they're able to win their game. I forget who they're playing.
Now that you put it that way, I would like to pummel Liberty. Is
there some behind the scenes ambition, motivation there, Sean?
Yes, and we'll leave it at that.
It was easier to hate Liberty when Hugh Freeze was there.
It was, but I still don't have much difficulty hating Liberty. And we'll just leave it there.
So anywho, yeah, I think I'd rather them win a New Year's Six Bowl. Like, you're right. It doesn't really matter, and it's going to matter a lot less come the playoff. But still, like, go on to say, okay, you won Peach Bowl. Like, not many coaches, if any, can say that they've won that many New Year's Six Bowl games. So I understand it's not what everybody wants at the end of the day, but still a nice accolade to have. And there's a scenario where they could play a good team in the Peach Bowl or a good team in the Fiesta Bowl. Theoretically, they could play in Oregon or a Washington too. It just kind of depends. People are like, oh, well, they're behind Missouri right now. But Auburn was technically ranked above Penn State the year that Auburn had to play UCF and Penn State got to play Washington. So it doesn't always work that the highest ranked team. It's kind of the money thing. I kind of tend to lean that Penn State's not going to play that group of 5 team, but what do I know?
Yeah, I mean, I try not to get into these projections because they confuse me. Now, what I do know is if Iowa wins and Oklahoma State wins, then we are out. That's what I gather. It would also probably be bad news if Louisville won. So
if you want Penn State to play in a New Year's Six Bowl, you don't want spoilers. Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Although, would it be funny if Iowa beat Michigan? Yes, it would be very funny if Iowa beat Michigan.
Yeah, I would actually get to go to New Year's Six Bowl,
Yes,
which would be insane.
Yes, that's nutty to think about.
But if something like that happens, though, like let's say if one of those weird ones happen, like let's just say just Louisville beats Florida State. Now both of those teams would probably go to New Year's Six Bowl, which could kick out Penn State, but it could open up maybe a better opponent depending on how it all works out. Like let's say Oklahoma State wins, like that could open up a chance for Penn State to maybe play Texas or whatever the case. Like there's a couple different avenues there where something works out where you might get a better opponent, maybe in Oklahoma, something like that. So hell, maybe even Georgia, depending on if Alabama wins and how they beat Georgia. But we don't know anything yet.
Yeah.
Hey, real quick,
we'll
do you think Alabama beats Georgia?
Yeah.
You
I
do?
just kind of think they're due, and they're playing well. I mean, I know they should have lost last week, but the Iron Bowl is one of those things that kind of toss the records out.
Yeah.
Especially at Jordan Hare.
Jordan Hare Stadium, heard it's a hard, difficult place to play.
That's so people say. I haven't had that experience though.
Oh man. Neither has New Mexico State.
yes. Yes, these rumors about it, but Bama does struggle there.
Yeah,
that's the rivalry.
All right, this last question here is from Devin. In an expanded playoff, are conference title games all that important when the alternative is an extra week of rest and preparation for the upcoming playoff run? Sure, a first round bye would be nice, but not sure it's important when you have to win a grueling game to get it while others rest. Yeah,
this is a good question.
It is a good question, but I will say this. If you're going to get rest by being a team that gets a bye, I think I would rather play it like, for example, take Michigan. Michigan's going to be able to rest their players against Iowa anyway. So play your game. If you're Michigan, you get up 14-0, you're going to win the game. It's already over. As long as you just punt the ball out of bounds and you don't turn it over, you're going to win the game. You can still rest your guys. And I would rather play Iowa and then rest my guys while 2 top 12 teams are playing. And then I play a team that is now had to have a grueling test for 4 quarters in that next round. I'd rather have that than say miss the conference championship and then have to potentially play on the road against a top 12 team, or even at home against a top 12 team, then come back and then play even technically a better team the next round. So I would still say you'd rather have that. Now, if you're Georgia, Alabama, like let's take this for example. Let's do a little thinking exercise here. Georgia is in the SEC championship against Alabama. Missouri theoretically would get into the playoff in a 12-team playoff this year. They're not obviously going to play in a conference championship. So would Georgia then play Bama? That one's trickier because that is not a gimme win for Georgia or Bama for that matter. But Georgia's going to make the playoff. But Georgia could play in the conference championship, lose after a tough game, then have to come back and potentially play on the road in that next round. And then if they win, still have to play. So in that case, Missouri definitely lucks out in that regard. I think it will be interesting too, Sean, before I turn it over to you. Like, how does the committee going to the 12-team format, like, are they going to drop teams harshly for losing conference championships? Because to me, if Georgia loses to Bama and you punish them so much where they have to then go on the road in their first game, like, now you're really losing some incentive there. But for like a Michigan going to play Iowa, which I guess moving forward, Big Ten is going to be playing the two best teams, so you won't have the East and West. It's probably going to be a tougher opponent. Maybe in that situation, let's say this year, Sean, it's Ohio State, Michigan playing each other right now for the Big Ten championship. You would rather be Penn State, 100%, because then you wouldn't. But I'm curious how they will punish teams who lose in the conference championship going forward.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head a little bit. You touched on something that I actually talked about with my dad a little bit last night. So it's going to be very hard when you lose the conference championship game because of the reasons you pointed out. You don't get that first round bye. Now you're playing an extra game. So you're playing game 14 when the team that you're playing, in all likelihood, is playing game 13. And that's a huge difference, especially when you're playing against one of the conference, especially when you went against one of the conference champions. So you assume it was a tough game. So it's very disadvantageous for the loser. How much will they get punished? I don't think they will, because I think the committee will keep in mind, look, they played the conference champion and they played an extra game. So in my mind, they shouldn't be treated too harshly. But that's no guarantee that they will. So to answer the question, I do think it's still worth it, because getting to I think it's still worth it for the champion, because getting to avoid that first round, I have a feeling that first round is going to be crazy. Some of the results you're going to get. And I think as time goes on, you're going to see a lot of stuff happen. I think you're going to see once in a while a 12 beat a 5. And I think that's going to be nuts. Just imagine a team like Tulane beating or 12 beat, what would it be? 12 beat a 6, correct?
Top 4 would get a bye, right?
Top 4 gets a bye. Yeah. So 12 would beat a 5. I think that stuff's going to happen. I think an 11 is going to beat a 6. I think you're just going to want to do everything you possibly could to avoid that first round. So I do think the first round bye will be worth it, but you better win the conference championship game.
Yeah. I mean, winning the conference, like, if you tell me winning the conference championship game basically gives you a bye, like, that's big time. Like, that is 100% worth going to it to get that bye, because I don't know if they plan on reseeding after like the first round or not. They probably will. Like, for example, does the 1 seed face the worst remaining seed? I assume so, right?
Yeah.
Like, the playoffs do it that
Probably.
way. Like, if you're well, they used to, and they had 2 byes, the worst bye team would play, etc. So in that case, if you're a 1 seed, if you win the conference, Penn State beats Ohio State for the Big Ten championship, and that jumps them from 3 to 1, like, that's big time, because now not only are you get the bye, but then you potentially play the number 12 team in the first round of your playoff, which could be like Tulane. So maybe Tulane upsets USC, And now you get Tulane in the first round. Tulane's already tired. They've already played one game. So, yeah, I think it's been very critical if you can to win that just to get that bye. But I'm with you, Sean. It's going to be interesting. A lot of people are going to complain, right? People that love the 4-team playoff. But I will say this, like, there is still a huge benefit to getting those four teams that get a bye. Like, to me,
Yeah.
people are not talking about that enough. Like, seeding does matter, and getting that, people are like, oh, the regular season doesn't matter as much. But in my opinion, it still matters just as much. Getting that bye is going to be critical. And, think about a team like Penn State, just a chance to get in and play somebody and improve themselves. Like, I'm not talking about a true Cinderella like a Tulane or a Liberty, but a team like Penn State, a team like USC in 2016. Like, don't tell me those kind of teams wouldn't have been able to do damage against somebody if they had the opportunity. I don't think those teams always exist, but even this year, like a Texas, like, I don't think anybody would necessarily want to play Texas in a playoff this year. Like, I don't think you'd want to play them. So, and matchups play such an important role too. But anyway, and even then, like, the SEC championship this year would mean so much more for the playoff next year than it does this year. Because right now we think, maybe it matters for Georgia, but the way they put the playoff ranking, Bama's probably not getting in, even if they beat Georgia. There will probably be some conversations on whether or not Georgia gets in or not, but Bama's probably not going to get in if they beat Georgia, just based off where they have them. So,
Yeah. Depends on how it shakes out, but yeah.
if they were both going to get in, then all of a sudden that kind of makes a big difference as far as who's going to get the bye, who might potentially have to go on the road. Or in Alabama's case, maybe Alabama doesn't even get in if they lose to Georgia in a 12-team playoff, because they're right there at 8. Okay, do you keep them? Let's say they lose by 10 points. Do you keep them in front of Missouri? I don't know.
Yeah, and full disclosure for next year, when we're having the playoff discussion, if Penn State is on the bubble and we do not get in, I will refuse to complain about it, because I'll be like, look, you had 2 chances or 3 chances and you didn't get it done. So full disclosure, that'll be me. So I definitely wouldn't want to hear belly aching from Bama either. And look, Texas beat Bama head to head in Tuscaloosa. So assuming Texas wins that Saturday, I think they will. Yeah, they would deserve to get in over Bama. So yeah, it's going to be interesting, because we've never seen this before in college football. And I think it'll be fun. I do. I think it'll be a good time. I think you're going to see some great matchups, especially that first week. Do I think the champion in the end will probably be one of the top 4 teams? Probably, but I don't think it'll be every year. So I think you're going to see teams make a run, and that's going to be exciting. And and they always say too, March Madness, it's not really about the champion. It's about what happens that first weekend. That's the best part of it. And it's going to be similar with the college football playoff.
I really think the best part about the playoff expansion is having that first playoff game at the campuses.
Me too.
Like, to me, as a fan growing up, that was something that, and I would have riot if they would have put those at other bowl games. I would have actually lost my mind. So, like, that's exciting. And if you're a season ticket holder, like, you got to be excited about that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you're a Penn State season ticket holder right now, you're going to get to see USC, you're going to get to see UCLA, Washington, Oregon come into Beaver Stadium in the next couple of years. And you're probably going to get to see a playoff game against
Hold on to your wallet.
Well, I'm hoping they're at least decent with us, since we already have. But it would definitely be cheaper than going to a game for the playoffs.
Yes, absolutely.
So, I'm excited for it, man. And we're a while away from that. It's going to be a lot of conversation about that this off season. People that don't know, we will be here every week during the rest of the year, because there is no off season here. Sean, anything else before we wrap up? It's kind of a weird show tonight.
Yeah, it was definitely more of a Corey and I at a bar conversation, like
Yeah.
two guys talking. But sometimes those are the best kind of shows. Everything doesn't always need to be super structured for a great show. And I feel like we talked about a lot of good things.
No structure tonight. So yeah, real quick, I'll have the film room probably up tomorrow on Twitter, X, whatever it is. We will have a show on Monday. Monday night we'll have a show, and then we will not have a show on Wednesday. So, Sean, I probably haven't asked you this, but you'll probably cover a lot of signing day on Wednesday if possible. Would that be that Wednesday? That might be actually a Wednesday before still.
That's Wednesday, December 20th.
Before. Okay, yeah. That would be it's 20th is the early signing day.
I believe so.
Okay, so we got plenty of time before then. Okay. For some reason I thought it was the 13th, but still that wouldn't matter. So anyway, Monday show, no Wednesday show. Haven't thought that far ahead after that, but I still think we'll probably end up doing 2 shows a week until the bowl game. It might be, hit or miss every once in a while. And then we'll go to 1 a week after the bowl game.
Yep.
Ish.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
Thank you guys so much for listening. If you haven't already, make sure to like and subscribe on YouTube. And if you're listening on podcast, please subscribe wherever you're listening. We really appreciate it. Thank you guys for another great regular season. It's been fun. We'll get the pick'em results out tomorrow as well. So, Sean, are you good?
I'm good.
All right. Well, for Sean Kane, I'm Cory Lestochi. You've been listening to Hardcore Penn State Football. Until